The woman, who is likely the world's best-known children's author, is defending herself against growing accusations of transphobia. This is J.K. Rowling, the creator of Harry Potter, of course.
Like, if I'm walking around and I'm a white nationalist, coward little kid with an AR-15, and I see somebody drive by with a Black Lives Matter bumper sticker and I feel threatened, I can open fire.
This case has nothing to do with race. It never had anything to do with race. It had to do with the right to self-defense.
Welcome to the New Flesh Podcast, the podcast you deserve. My name is Jonathan Astro. With me is Ricky Allpike. Ricky, what's going on?
What's going on? Not guilty is what's going on.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Kyle Rittenhouse.
Kyle Rittenhouse.
We talked about this last week, and the verdict is in. People have, even I'm sure if you haven't been following it, you've even heard about this, how it's the wash up. What did you make of it all?
I think justice was served, to be honest. If you've looked into the case at all, you can clearly see that that the guy was acting in self-defense. Whether or not you agree with how he ended up being there or his motivations for going, I think that's irrelevant. You need to look at the facts of the case. And a jury came back with unanimous not guilty verdicts, and I was actually quite moved when the guilty verdict was handed out. Kyle, he fell to his knees. He almost sort of collapsed. He was like clutching his chest a little bit. Not that he was having a heart attack or anything, but just that I don't know, that overwhelming sense of relief and all sorts of emotions, I'm sure, I'd like surging through him at that moment. And
well, he's not going to go to prison and become the new fish and just get pounded and railed straight away.
Yes, yeah. Well, the prosecution, they were gunning for life sentence without parole. So, if it's for a guy who's 17 when he was caught up in all this shit, to have that sort of hanging over your head is a big weight for sure. And, predictably, the media has come out disgustingly doubling down on everything that they were saying beforehand. Now they're just saying, this has opened up the floodgates for, vigilantes to, just to claim that they felt threatened and then they can open fire and all this fucking bullshit. And I've actually got a little compilation of some of the US media outlets reporting on the not guilty verdict. This is courtesy of the Megyn Kelly show.
This jury sent the final and loudest warning to white America about the dangerous rise of white nationalist terror in this country. Like, if I'm walking around and I'm a white nationalist, coward little kid with an AR-15, and I see somebody drive by with a Black Lives Matter bumper sticker and I feel threatened, I can open fire.
This country was built on the idea that white men had a particular kind of freedom, from the slave catchers on, the right to inflict violence in the name of protecting property. Anyone who supports Black Lives Matter should be very afraid tonight.
That now we can see people baiting violence to have a reaction. Very serious problem for activism, because now we're being told that someone can cross state lines with a semi-automatic rifle and kill people.
And today, what we were told was that white self-defense trumps everybody else's sense of safety and protection.
The fact that white supremacists roam the halls of Congress freely and celebrate this little murderous white supremacist.
You matter. Every time one of these verdicts come out, it's easy to feel like you don't, but I'm here to tell you that you do. You matter. You matter so much that the second you start to get a sense that you do, a man will grab a gun he shouldn't have in the first place and travel all the way to another state just to quiet you.
So yeah, really outrageous stuff there by some of the commentators in the US. It's just how anyone takes the mainstream media seriously in the US is beyond me,
Well, we just want to keep talking about this, but I just want to get back to, a little bit of objectivity, striving for it, whether you believe it can be achieved or not. I want it to be, to play it relatively straight, to tone down the language. If you're a news outlet, you should tone down the language. Do you know what I mean? Like, I understand why they use that language. They're trying to get clicks. They're trying to get, and they're not trying to. When you're using this high impact language, you're actually not trying to create a positive atmosphere. You're trying to create negativity, and that's how you get those clicks. That's how you get everyone riled up and angry. Yep. And you're also playing to your audience, your base, and it's really disappointing to listen to. Because I've said this case, from what I gather, is not, nothing else was on trial except this one kid. Okay. This is just one little trial, one incident that went on in a particular situation. And it's not, America's not on trial. White people aren't on trial. Black people aren't on trial. It's just this one kid. Do you know what I mean? And you need to look at the facts of the case. But I learned a few interesting things out of this case that, just to pull back from some of those cultural things, I didn't know. So, the Second Amendment law, in America is the right to, well, people argue about it, but the right to bear arms.
Yes.
I always leave out the second part. I think it's, but it's basically the right to bear arms. So the kid was allowed to have a weapon, but the laws of Wisconsin permitted him to carry a weapon openly.
Wow. That
was something new. So when because I don't know from American perspective what you feel. Like if you live in New York, I think I know what you feel when you look at the image of that kid with the gun, right?
Yeah.
But if you live in just, a flyover state, that's maybe not, like that. What do you feel when you look at that image? Because I look at that image from Australia, and our Prime Minister of 20 years ago famously had an amnesty and got all the most guns off people. Now the only people who have guns is some hunters and things like that. But we don't have this kind of artillery really and whatnot. Although you can still get them if you're that committed.
You can still get guns. You just can't get the semi-automatic ones.
Yeah, no, but you can't. But then let's face it, there's just more hurdles.
There are, yeah.
And if you're committed, then you can get a gun. So don't pay. If you're listening to this and you're a Second Amendment guy or girl, and you can get a gun if you come to Australia. It's all right. Yeah. You can. If you there's just heaps more hurdles. Like you can't just be like the Columbine shooters and just order it online and get delivered to your house or whatever. And you know what I mean? Or you can't just be a 17-year-old and walk down the street with something, that kind of looks like it's out of Doom or Quake or something,
Yeah.
And I don't know, so that to me was interesting.
Well, I wonder how many people do walk the streets openly with a gun in those sorts of states.
Well, I guess it's different state by state, and obviously there's some people who've been posting images of different people, because the argument was, what if you saw that kid with the gun or whatever, and then there were people on Insta posting just from the other day. Some people of color in a counter march or something with AR whatevers.
Do you need a special permit to do that though? Are there any hurdles to gaining the access to openly carry?
Surely you have to have a permit. You can't just have a gun and go, this is my gun,
Because if I was walking down the street and I saw a guy on the other side of the street corner or something holding a rifle, I would probably turn around and walk in the opposite direction.
But he was 17 as well, wasn't he?
Yes.
So this is what I don't understand. Let's just say, maybe I should have actually looked into this, but no, because I'm interested. I've only just become really interested in it right now, but I'm thinking about it. I'm like, wait a minute. So if he's 17 and he's got a permit, then so he can have a permit for a gun, but he can't smoke.
I know. Yeah.
And drink.
Yep. Can't drink.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I'm just so anyway, looking at that image, that's a shocking image to see people walking around with guns. But what I'm interested in also is the shock and awe of some people in America, or the responses when they're like, it's so appalling. I'm like, wait, but you live in America. You know what I mean?
Hasn't this been going on for a long time?
Hasn't this been going on forever? Hasn't guns been around forever? And isn't it just don't you just have to then pick your state and say, I don't want to live in a state where there's guns everywhere or something?
I guess so. Yeah.
I don't know, because it feels like they're in that situation. We should do a whole show on guns, I think, by the sound of it.
Yeah.
Because I won't get into it too much. But I'm just interested in the way that some people are so shocked. And I'm like, wait, but you live in America. I don't understand. I know it's not the Wild West, but it's in your constitution. So it's not like you were lied to.
Yeah.
So anyway,
well, the other issue is celebrities and politicians coming out early and tweeting about the case and tainting the case as well.
Not just celebrities.
No, not just celebrities. I mean, we're talking about the president of the United States, who was then candidate. He was running for president.
Well,
Joe
he had
Biden.
the opportunity to walk that back the other day, and he didn't.
And he didn't do it. Yeah. So Kyle Rittenhouse and his lawyers, they're actually looking to sue the
That
president.
kid is going to get so much money.
He
Do you know
is.
that other kid with the Trump hat on, who had that fracas with the Native Americans?
Yes. Yeah.
He's got $250 million in defamation lawsuits.
Wow. Such a big amount of money.
250. So this kid is going to make serious bank. And I love that these outlets that have all used all that have just put him on trial or whatever before anything's even happened and used, defamatory language, and now just have to they just pay it out and go, anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they're like, oh, well, that's all just part of business. Like, we're terrible at our job. We say the wrong thing. We pay hundreds of millions of dollars. And anyway, that's all good. Moving on.
Well, it can't go on forever because eventually the bank's going to dry up. The money's going to dry up. I've actually got a little clip here of Rittenhouse talking to Tucker Carlson. There's an interview. I'm not sure if it's out yet, but they've done a little promo, and I'll just play that now. It's very short.
I tell everybody there what happened. I said I had to do it. I was just attacked. I was dizzy. I was vomiting. I couldn't breathe. This case has nothing to do with race. It never had anything to do with race. It had to do with the right to self-defense.
Right.
I'm not a racist person. I support the BLM movement. I support peacefully demonstrating. And I believe there needs to be change. I believe there's a lot of prosecutorial misconduct, not just in my case, but in other cases. And it's just amazing to see how much a prosecutor can take advantage of somebody.
So yeah, that was Kyle with Tucker Carlson on Fox News, and he sounds like a pretty reasonable, well-balanced kid, to be honest. Like,
certainly more with it than I was at his age.
Yeah, sure.
So he did come across well, I thought.
Yeah.
You'd have to work hard to see him as an out-and-out domestic terrorist, I think.
Yeah. Well, now he's going to be a multimillionaire,
Oh, so rich. The only other thing I wanted to bring up was the other thing I learned, which was, and I think this is worth taking away, this was from a great little article in Quillette with a legal scholar talking about, it's called The Rittenhouse Trial, a legal scholar responds, by Ronald S. Sullivan Jr. Now, he was just talking about self-defense, and I thought this was interesting. So the law of self-defense takes into account 5 principal concepts. 1, proportionality. 2, imminent threat of harm. 3, reasonable apprehension. 4, first aggressor doctrine. And 5, duty to retreat. So I thought this was just fascinating. He sort of breaks it down. He says, here's how it works. The use of force must be proportionate. If someone plucks your ear, you can't hit them with a baseball bat. That's not proportionate to the original force applied. The threat that justifies the use of force must be imminent. You cannot, for example, leave the scene and come back later and settle a score. The threat is no longer imminent, and self-defense will not be available. Your fear of a threat must be objectively reasonable. Your subjective assessment of the threat is not sufficient. The legal question regards whether a reasonable person under the same circumstances would have perceived the situation as a threat. Then, courts apply 2 equitable doctrines to the analysis. The first is the first aggressor doctrine. The first aggressor loses the ability to assert a self-defense claim. Quite simply, if you initiate the encounter, you cannot later claim self-defense. So that guy who lifted his gun, he can't claim self-defense because he was the first aggressor. Kyle Rittenhouse's gun was down, and that guy with the handgun, he lifted it. So bye his self-defense. And finally, before courts authorize the use of deadly force by civilians, in most cases, you have a duty to safely retreat. State law varies with respect to a duty to retreat, and stand your ground laws in many states further complicate this equitable doctrine. I think that what that means is that stand your ground, by the sounds of it, means exactly what it sounds like, which is you don't have to retreat. You're allowed to plant your feet. You're allowed to say, I don't have to take a backward step. Whereas there's generally speaking, you have to, if it's possible, you have to, as you said before, if I see someone with a rifle, I can retreat. Do you know what I mean? Whereas, so you're sort of encouraged to retreat, but some states say, no, you can stand your ground, and you can say, no, and that's so American, don't you think? Stand your ground.
Yes.
Don't you think that? You think that is like the most ultimate? And we love America, by the way. So
it sounds like gunslingers on either side of the road, standing their ground, sizing
it's like,
each other up.
Fucking make me move.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I think that that's a great breakdown of what went on here, and so the jury would have had to go through that.
Yes.
And when you look at the video, so without the video, I think some of that would have been hard to prove.
For sure, yeah, and that's when all the media influence would have played a role, and we could well have seen a different verdict. You know, the last thing I wanted to actually bring up was that each three of Kyle Rittenhouse's victims were criminals. Like, two of them, I think, had been convicted of pedophilia and a bunch of other things. And
you're allowed to bring all that up.
I'm not allowed to bring all that up.
No, you have to keep it all that quiet,
and have to keep and that they're white,
and you have to sort of imply that they're black guys.
I know, yeah.
You've got to say they're black adjacent.
Black adjacent.
You know, and then you go, wait, what does that mean? Well, it means they're white guys. They were at a Black Lives Matter rally, and you go, yeah, but weren't they bad hombres? And then and then the people go, oh, it says you know, they weren't bad hombres. They were just, and you go, wait, wasn't one of them a fucking pedophile? Yeah, but Kyle Rittenhouse didn't know that. And you're so confused, you know.
But what does that say about the people who attend these protests? You know, if I mean, the three what's the chances that he would come into encounter with three BLM protesters that all have pretty extensive rap sheets, you know, to do with violence, domestic violence, pedophilia, you know, on that night? You know, it's crazy. I think it reflects pretty badly on the kind of people that turn up to BLM protests, you know.
Well, I think about the jury, and you know what? When you think philosophically, you say, yes, I know 100% why that information can't be given to the jury. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's damning and prejudicial and irrelevant to the moment that you know that Kyle Rittenhouse did what he did. But having said that, if I was a jury member and I came out and now have heard all of that, man, the weight lifted off your shoulders. The weight. I mean, it's terrible. You know, as this legal scholar says, it's tragic because, you know, these people, their families have lost someone, and you know, no one should just be shot down and killed. Really, that's terrible. But at the same time, in the scheme of things, you'd be like, oh my God, I felt terrible, but now I don't feel as bad. They were bad hombres.
Yeah. For sure.
Does that make sense?
Yes, for sure. I think it would lift the burden a little bit. You know, it's not to say that you'd be happy, that you'd be like, oh no. Yes, he took out three criminals. Isn't this great?
No, because it's not Death Wish, or something. But at the same time, but I get your point about the, you know, maybe that's a good lead into some of the Melbourne stuff, because I was shocked by the counter rally that went on recently in Melbourne.
Yes, the counter rally. Well,
and so all the sort of left-leaning individuals that held this counter rally, and I was shocked by some of the video I saw.
Yes, yeah. So we've been having, you may or may not know that in Melbourne we've been having extensive protests every weekend out the front of a state parliament here in Melbourne, and the protests in relation to a new pandemic bill that the government is trying to pass through, which will give the Premier basically full powers to declare a pandemic whenever he wants without any sort of parliamentary oversight.
Hi there to all our listeners. It's your boy Ricky here. I'm in the middle of the protests here. The intersection of Burke Street and Spring Street. Things are getting pretty lively. I'm here with my son. He's on my shoulders, and I'm just going to walk around and see what I can see. So we're right at the steps here at Parliament House. There's a fairly big contingent of police force. There's even police up on the top of the buildings with cameras filming us. Yeah, it's all happening. They're just playing some classic John Farnham, You're the Voice. Don't know if you can hear that. So there's a lot of activity here, a lot of people hanging around, a lot of drums, chanting comes and goes. Kill the bill, sack Dan Andrews, lots of signs, people of all different ages, all different ethnicities, all different classes, all sorts of people, lots of different families. I actually took my son to the Freedom Day protest on Saturday. And this protest is I mean, some people say it's anti-vax protesting, sometimes some people say it's anti-lockdown protesting, but, you know, it is largely against the state government's proposed pandemic legislation, which is if it does come in, it means that these sort of orders can come in, lockdown orders, without any parliamentary oversight or scrutiny. And we did talk about this a couple of weeks ago, but what's interesting is that the Labor government here, which is Australia's equivalent to like the Democratic Party in the US, is trying to paint the protesters as extremists, white supremacists, anti-vaxxers and neo-Nazis. Now, I was there and I saw people of every race and age. There were working class people, there were professional people, and tons of families with kids as well. You know, it's estimated that the rally had 450,000 people, although the state-run Australian Broadcasting Commission, the ABC, only ever reports numbers as thousands, not tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but just thousands. And there was chanting there. There was, you know, people were chanting "Sack Dan Andrews," "Kill the bill," "Freedom," "Save our kids," and stuff like that. It was completely peaceful. It was rowdy at times, but it was peaceful. There were no chants to kill anyone or kill Dan Andrews or anything like that. The protests have garnered some criticism because someone, I think the week before, brought a prop gallows, and I don't think that helped the anti-pandemic legislation crowd. You know, it's only a handful of people that brought this prop gallows. As well as a guillotine as well. So there was a prop gallows plus a prop guillotine, and there was an effigy of Premier Daniel Andrews. And this is really the only evidence that the left is using in order to brandish everyone, all 450,000 of them, as extremists. And let's not forget that in the not too distant past, left-wing protesters burned effigies of the then Prime Minister Tony Abbott and Federal Minister Christopher Pyne. And I think that was during the same-sex marriage debate. But, you know, how quickly people forget about these things, you know. So it's okay for them to burn images of prime ministers, but, you know, it's not okay for people to bring prop gallows when it's on the other foot. And as you said, there was a rival protest that was happening a few blocks away. This was basically an Antifa protest, really. And it was an anti-fascist protest against the so-called white supremacist Freedom Day protesters. So it was protesting the protesters. And now these guys are the true extremists. The language they used is absolutely disgusting. And the way they push around media trying to cover this event is extreme. There's footage of Avi from Rebel Media, who's a guy here in Australia. He's Israeli, and he's been covering these issues for a long time. He's been going out to the protests and interviewing people, and there's video of him being sort of menaced and people trying to stop him from walking around and trying to steal his microphone, push him around, stuff like that. And
Assaulted is the word.
Assaulted,
I think
yeah.
That some of the people on the other side would use if it happened to them.
That's right. Yeah. And the police had to basically say, listen, you can't be here. And he sort of protests that. And you can check that out online. It's quite interesting.
He tries to raise the point, though. He's like, wait a minute. He's like, when mainstream media were being attacked last year, you guys didn't ask them to leave. You stepped in and, dealt with the people who were doing that. So, which is to say that there's a double standard going on here.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, and we saw last lockdown protests that were happening. When we were, I think, in our 6th lockdown, and some of the protests that happened before that. You see the police using the most heavy-handed tactics: rubber bullets, people being choked because they're not wearing a mask.
Yep.
Old people thrown to the ground.
Where was all that?
Exactly. There's none of that for the left-wing protesters.
Because those, from what I saw, they seemed like absolute ferals.
Yeah, they were.
You know what I mean? Like just a disgusting language. Like, anti-Jewish sentiment from a bunch. It was just the most appalling stuff.
And even some of the chants they're saying, I can't quite remember the specific chant. It saying that all the anti-vaxxers were Nazis and white supremacists and all that sort of stuff. And just it really upsets me actually that they're trying to paint people like me who went to the protests. I am actually concerned about these laws and these bills that the government's trying to pass through. So, calling me a white supremacist and a Nazi, really gets me. It
doesn't make sense though. Like I tried to explain the other side to Katie.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, there's these protests and here's the video, check it out. And she's like, wait, what are these people protesting? And I was like, oh, they're against the other protesters, the people who are against the bill. Yeah. The pandemic bill. And she's like, wait, yeah, I get that. But why are they talking about white supremacy? What's that got to do with anything? And I said, I don't know.
Well, this is the thing, most of the people at these pro-freedom protests, they're articulate and they have legitimate concerns. And you either address their concerns or you move to delegitimize them by calling them extremists, Nazis, and white supremacists. That's really the only thing that you have up your sleeve. If you're not willing to sit down at the table and go, okay, there's a large proportion of people out there that are protesting. There are lots of people that feel the same way that don't go to the protest as well. You've got to assume there are thousands of people out there that feel the same way but just don't turn up. And they have legitimate concerns and you need to address them, or you need to start using some of these really bad tactics. The issue around this pandemic bill is that it's about assembly, it's about debate, it's about consensus. It's a little thing called democracy. That's what it's about. And these laws are undermining democracy and putting way too much power in the hands of the state. And that's what leftists want. They want mask mandates, they want vaccination mandates. And if any of those leftists at the protests have anything to do with the environmental movement, which I suspect they do, they're down for lockdowns on environmental grounds as well. They want governments to come in and say, right, you're not allowed to drive your car. Right, you're not allowed to eat meat because, the meat industry creates all this, methane gas and contributes to carbon dioxide emission and stuff like that. So they actually want that sort of intervention. And I think they've seen an opening here. The door's opened a crack and they're like, this could actually happen. This is how we could stop climate change, is governments just need to lock us down. And it's fucking frightening, On this term of Nazis, my grandma, my Oma, she lived in Holland during the German occupation, and she hid a family of Jewish people under the floorboards for 6 years, risking her life, her family's life, in her early 20s. And she would be, if she was alive today, she would be shocked to know that people are behaving like this in a Western democracy. I mean, this is what she fought for in her own very small, localized way in her small town in the north of Holland, was to have these sorts of freedoms. And I'm sure she would be outraged that people like you and I are being called Nazis, because she actually fought real Nazis, and she actually was in situations like Inglourious Bastards where Nazis actually come into the home and the family's under the floorboards, and she was lucky enough to, not get a bullet in the back of the head. And I think it's just outrageous the way this sort of language gets thrown around. And there's a disgusting article in The Conversation, which I'm not sure if you were able to read. I did send it to you, I think, this morning or late last night, basically saying that the anti-vax movement is white supremacy and it's been infiltrated by far-right extremists and Proud Boys and blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
And they're basically painting what's happening with this freedom protest as basically anti-vax, is that everyone there is an anti-vaxxer. And I'm vaccinated. I'm not anti-vax, but I am pro-choice. And I think what the country's up to 92% vaccination rate now.
Yeah, we've got some of the highest numbers in the world.
So what does it matter? What does it matter if there's a really small percentage of people that don't want to get vaccinated? Like, we've done the job. We've got to 90%, which is, like you say, the highest some of the highest numbers in the world. Let's move on.
Well, it sort of makes what these people are doing. They come across as drama queens.
Yeah.
Like, this is, if you're talking in Australia right now, if you're talking about Nazis and white supremacists and stuff, you are a total drama queen. Like, and I think that sort of language really detracts from, what we should be doing is hunting down, if we're talking about this race stuff for a second, hunting down the real, racists and, the genuine stuff that goes on, that whether it be systemic or whatever, there might be structures or material things we can change to make things a little bit more to get equality somehow. Whereas I just see these words as being it's sort of like you're trying to will something into reality when you say white supremacy. Like, for every time you say white supremacy and we picture, the Grand Wizard from the KKK.
Yeah.
Well, I think that really is just inappropriate. Like, and
it's complete fantasy too.
It is fantasy. It is fantasy. I mean, are there some loose units out there? And I think when people are racist or I think it just speaks for itself. I just don't think you need to use that kind of, particularly when because this word white supremacy gets used inappropriately all the time. So again, it's become meaningless. So now when a real white supremacist comes along, we won't know what to call them.
Yes.
We'll be like, I don't know what to call you. I was too busy calling, Richard Dawkins a white supremacist, and fucking Dave Chappelle.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, well, these protests are continuing, I think, each weekend, as far as I know, and until something happens with this bill. Currently, the government doesn't have the support to pass the legislation, but it's, they only need one extra vote, so they just need to get someone to offer some politician something for their party to get them to vote yes. And
well, I hope they don't get it.
No, I hope they don't get it either. And if we get to the 15th of December, and I think that's the last chance they get up to the 15th of December before the year's over for Parliament. So I'm hoping it can get there. Well, that got me a bit steamed. I think we should bring Sheila on.
Time for the news.
Sheila!
Hello!
You're back.
I am.
Now, hopefully, I'm not undercutting your news, but you sent me an alarming picture this morning.
That's not even on my list, but no,
well, I'm glad I brought it up. Then you sent me. It was scary. It was frightening. It was ugly. So, what was the image?
Oh, it was of Gina Davis. Some awful paparazzi has taken an appalling photo of her, and the Daily Mail has said that it's her new look. It's absolutely disgraceful, to the point where I would like to put it on our New Flesh Instagram, just so people can see.
It is significant.
It is.
It's momentous. So if you're picturing Long Kiss Goodnight and whatnot, and The Fly and everything. Just now, when you see this image later, I don't know. All I could think was Grey Gardens. I thought she looked like little Edie or Big Edie. in Grey Gardens.
Absolutely. It's a disgraceful picture, and no one wants to be photographed in that state, and the paparazzi who took it need to actually have a deep look at their souls, because it is absolutely appalling.
Actually, I think I can show Ricky.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. What is that? It looks like
She sort of looks like the island of Dr. Moreau.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, sort of like there you go.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
What do you think? She's got the one glove on as well.
What is she wearing on her head? It looks like a
I don't know.
Well,
what
it's
is that?
just a scarf or something. I don't know. She's probably doing the kids pick up or drop off. It's appalling. But I think we just, because obviously the viewers can't see it, but I'll get the boys to put it on our on our Instagram, and you can see it and see how low
both the Daily Mail and Gina Davis have fallen. So
it's not Gina Davis's fault. She's just living her life.
Hey, come on, you can't dress up like that and get away with it. Okay, what's the first story today? I need the news, Sheila. What's going on in the world?
All right, okay. Santa bags himself a boyfriend. Advert for Norwegian Postal Service features same-sex Father Christmas love story.
Well, that's fine, but is he just fucking around while Mrs. Claus is at home? Like, is he doing the full British MP, just, rent boy life, or what?
I don't know.
Or are we saying that no, he was and always will be a gay man?
They're going to have to change the lyrics to that song. That song, I caught Mummy kissing Santa by the Christmas tree or something. It'll have to be I caught Daddy kissing.
I caught Mommy kissing Santa
That's
Claus.
the one.
That one, yeah.
Well, you've heard of St. Nick. It's time for St. Dick.
Perfect.
I tell you what, the picture they've got, because I'm into seeing dudes kiss. It's hot. It's hot. So, yeah, good on.
Listen, I've got to say, but I've got to say, Father Christmas is a kid's thing. I mean, we can enjoy it too, but it's for kids. So, is this
so
just...
why are we saying no? But wait, you said it was for the postal service or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's for the postal service in Norway. Norwegians can't really put a foot wrong. They're pretty, they're pretty cool in all respects. So, yeah, I mean, it's a hot ad.
So is Santa a bear in this?
He is, and he does appear a little older than the hot young gent. But
so it's just kink. So it's just straight kink, like just
Christmas kink.
Old bear with his young rent boy, and it's an affair. So
is the rent boy dressed as a reindeer, like with a collar and a leash and?
No.
Oh, that's too much. Yeah, that's too much. Come on, Sheila. You brought this up.
No, I'm just the news person, okay? I'm just a freaking news person.
So you're saying is don't shoot the messenger. Okay, all right.
Don't shoot the messenger.
All right, okay, all right.
Unlike North Korea, North Korean is sentenced to execution by firing squad after students were caught watching a copy of Squid Game he'd smuggled into the country. I mean, fair go. This is outrageous.
How dare you watch Squid Game? Now let's kill you in a very Squid Game-like manner.
Yes. So meta.
Well, we'll show you. If you like Squid Game, here's the real Squid Game. Why does North Korea love shooting people so much?
I know.
It's so upsetting. This is, the whole world is enjoying this, show, and these dudes found it on a USB. For all we know, it was, you know how sometimes people put USBs on balloons?
Yes. Yeah, and send them over. Yes, they do.
Oh,
and,
that's amazing.
And they've got things like Sex in the City
and James Bond and stuff.
James Bond and all kinds of, just to try and,
that's genius.
Give people in North Korea some.
Hang on. We've had 2 downloads from South Korea.
Yes.
Let's get the New Flesh podcast over there. Let's do it. Let's
Yeah,
pay
for
someone, get
sure.
some USBs.
You know, I feel like, and I think that if you're in North Korea, this is the podcast you want to be learning English with.
Oh my God.
You need to know
Father.
words like lady dick and, you know,
Chubby.
Mad cunt.
mad cunt, you know, all of that. So, you know, we're here for you.
Gay for stay, all that kind of thing. All right, okay. Oh, now this is just because it plays into something you guys were talking about recently. China bans celebrities from showing off wealth or extravagant pleasure on social media as communist rulers continue their crackdown on the entertainment industry.
You can't see how the other side lives. That's what they're doing.
I just love the shitty English as well. Like, I like extravagant pleasure. Like, it's just, why do we let China get away with it too? Like, because they never, like, their government never shuts up, and they've got so much to say, and their English is mad. You know? And they'll say stuff like, "We are banning extravagant pleasure," and no one in the room says, "I don't think that's what you like." That just sounds a bit, you know, bizarre. Anyway,
well, I've got something slated for next week. There's actually been a quite a prominent basketballer in the NBA that's come out against China and thinks that we should be boycotting the Winter Olympics that's coming up. And I was hoping to talk about that next week, but you know, it's good to see some people are pushing back.
Yeah, look, it's fantastic because with this one, I think the cat is already out of the bag. I've said the wrong thing there. Pandora's box is already open. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Cat's out of the bag.
Yeah. It's so, I think, here's a good one. It's like putting an octopus into a string bag at the moment because it's already out. You know, like people have seen media and celebrity, and I think people were so hungry for it in China, and they haven't grown up with this kind of thing, you know, like celebrities and stuff like that. I think it's going to be very, very hard to crack down on this because people have enjoyed it.
That's right. But when you lift people out of poverty and, you know, they've got, you know, food and shelter, the next thing is they're like, now
Yeezys.
Yeah, well, how do I get my Yeezys? How do I become an influencer? You know,
yeah.
How do I get my own TV show? You know,
how do I hire Jojo Siwa for my kid's birthday?
That's right. So, yeah, no, it's fascinating. I don't know. I'm fascinated by the way they crack down on all of this, these capitalist impulses of it. Like, it seems like a lot of it is performative as well, or they go after these big targets like Fan Bingbing and whoever and say, right, that's enough out of you and Jack Ma and whatever.
But there's no warnings either. There's, you know, like there's
no consistency either.
Yeah, it's sort of like everything's okay. Oh, no, suddenly Fan Bingbing is gone.
No feminine men.
Yeah, no girly men.
No girly men. We hate that now. And you go, wait, you hate that? Yes. Why do you hate that? I just can't stand it. Okay.
Yeah. All of a sudden.
And if you're rich as well, I don't like that. And you go,
yeah.
Okay.
Bye-bye, Jack Ma.
Just keeping you on your toes. That's all it is.
It's it is very strange, but I mean, I don't know where it's.
Well, that is all about control, though. Like that's almost like something you'd see in a cop show, like the way that you know, it's like Al Pacino in Heat. He tries to keep the perp off balance. So you say mad shit, you're hitting the desk, you're doing weird things, like there's no consistency, it's strange, you're pulling the rug out. So that really is a
bad cop.
Yeah, well, it's just to control them.
There's not a good cop, it's just bad cop.
Because you're going to walk around going, oh, I don't know, like, you know, I really love my social credit. I don't want to lose it, so I better not do anything. You know, I mean, I don't know what John Cena's social credit is, but I think it's pretty high.
Oh, don't get me started on him. Seriously.
I think he might actually be a traitor.
I thought you were going to say I think he might actually be Chinese.
No, I think he might actually be treasonous, and I think we should send him to Guantanamo Bay.
Look, I think he needs to have, a good hard look at himself because there's, you know, young sort of people much poorer than himself who are standing. I mean, look at that young man in Queensland who has stood up to the University of Queensland, which is basically apparently an arm of
of the CCP.
Yeah.
It's like it's a branch.
yeah. And people like Mac Horton.
Oh, I love Mac.
I know. Who I bet you didn't know this. The supporters of the person that he called out put broken glass in his parents' pool. And stuff like that, like his parents were targeted. So there's people like, Mac Horton and that young student in Queensland who was standing up, and you've got John Cena, who's as rich as shit. But
that says everything, though, doesn't it? That says everything. Look at LeBron James; he won't say anything. Like it's whoever's in the pocket of the CCP, whoever is desperate for the Chinese market's money, won't question why they removed the person of why that they won't question why the only person of color in June was removed from the poster when the poster
outrageous. By the way, that is outrageous.
It might be outrageous, but it is standard operating procedure, and no one talks about it. No one talks about the blatant, appalling, like state-sponsored racism that goes on in China.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, this story's got me steamed.
Oh, we might need to revisit this in greater detail next week because
I've got
to. Because also, I mean, I want to ask the question to you guys: how many people do you think can disappear before people rise? Like, how many people do you disappear? Do you know what I mean? Like when everyone keeps bobbing up and offending. Like, how many can the CCP disappear before?
It's a great question.
Something happens. Do you know what I mean? Like it can't be endless. You can't just.
But it reminds you a bit of what went on in those South American states in the 80s, in the 70s, and whatever. Like like stadiums full of people getting disappeared, and you wonder how crazy it has to be before
anyone else stands up.
Well, what can be done though? They've got such military might. There's sanctions and things like that. You can do diplomatic pressure, but it's a really deep issue that will take a long time to sort out.
It's a runaway train. Yeah.
Well, they want to be the number one superpower by 2049 or something like that.
Oh God.
Terrifying. Anyway, moving on.
I hope I'm dead.
I'll kill you. How about that?
Holy paint job, Batman. Mexican police find robbery suspects tied to the lamppost and their faces painted like the Joker by mystery vigilante. And these guys actually, whoever's done the painting, they look brilliant.
Oh, so it's good work.
Yeah, these villains look fantastic. Like whoever's done it, they've got the green hair. They look like Joaquin Phoenix's Joker.
But the weird thing is, what gets you about that story is it's the time investment. Like the guy, because the flurry of and the adrenaline's all gone, and so they're just tied up, hanging there, and you're like, okay, now hold still, all right. I've got to get the eyeliner on properly, and no, just don't do that. The green's not going in even. It's it's a long process, and they just have to sit there limp. Let it happen to them.
Guys, can I ask that you put this photo up, please, on New Flesh on the Instagram? Because this photo of this person, their artwork on these two villains is wonderful. So
are they both the Joker, or they're different characters?
They're both the Joker, a lady and a gentleman.
Lady Joker. Ooh.
Both Joker. It's great. A lady Joker.
Great stuff.
All right, here we go. This is in Australia. Glamorous veterinarian is struck off after confessing that she injected her friends and herself with horse tranquilizer on a drug-fueled weekend bender. This chick's really hot, by the way. She's really hot. And I think, she injected her and her mates with ketamine. Now, honestly, as opposed to what every person under 25 is doing every weekend and jumping straight into the K-hole with tablets they've bought off some random.
Or she's a professional.
This woman's a professional. This is how you want to get trapped in the K-hole. You want to with your hot-looking mate who's a vet.
You do, but then the last thing you see is she's doing herself as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's
one for
not
the doctor.
good. That's it's like going under anaesthetic and seeing the anaesthetist just whack the mask on themselves.
That's right. It's like fear and loathing, and one for the doctor. Oh.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we've
Queensland,
lost a very.
did you say?
I don't know. Hang on, Western Australia.
Western Australia, for fuck's sake!
Oh God, why is WA featuring so heavily every week in our mad cunt kind of section? We've got the Bunbury kids. We've got the vet.
I thought it was Queensland. No, but of course it's WA. They're bored. They don't know what to do. They're like, we can't travel. Let's just, come on, everyone. We're going out tonight. We're going to Northbridge. Here, sit down. I'm going to inject you with some ketamine.
Well,
but does that make you sleepy though? If it's a tranquilizer?
Look, I'm not going to admit that I've been in the K-hole, Ricky. But if I had, it kind of makes you feel like you're in a very long tunnel.
Okay.
And you're looking at people at the end of like a train tunnel. So you don't go to sleep.
It's a drug for a train enthusiast.
So the person on the couch next to you looks like they're about 50 meters away.
Okay.
So, yeah. Look, I mean, good on you, young people. But, WA... Vale, you've lost a very glamorous-looking vet. 100%. So, I mean, I think a rap on the knuckles could have been all right there. But
normally, hot privilege gets you out of a lot.
It does.
I guess this wasn't going to fly.
Gullible and stupid man, 49, who stole more than $800,000 from his employer to give to a prostitute after he became infatuated with her. When his marriage ended, is jailed. Oh, God, Daily Mail, your grammar is something else.
Are you allowed to just call people stupid and gullible? Straight out.
That's from Gus McCubbing for Australian Associated Press.
Ooh.
Wow. There you
so
go.
$800,000 to a prostitute.
Yeah.
So did he get to kiss her on the lips?
Gosh. Yeah, who knows? The judge said your gullibility and stupidity do not reduce your moral culpability.
Wow. There you go. That's where did this happen?
I believe it. Oh God, why do you do this?
And they did the ages again.
Oh, in Victoria, yes. They did the ages.
49. You're like, oh, he's a bit. He's starting to become a bit of a silly old fool.
It's pretty close to my age. Hang on. Can I just finish one with one? You can cut it out if you want.
Sure.
Tourist is savaged by a 12-foot crocodile after mistaking the predator for a plastic model and climbing into its pool for selfies in an amusement park in the Philippines. He's okay, everyone. He's okay. But seriously, I mean, if it was plastic, why would they put him in a pool? Do you know what I mean?
Was he visiting a zoo? Was he like at an animal park?
It's an amusement park.
Amusement park.
So he climbed over just seemingly a very low fence.
Oh, my. And so people were like, oh, this is a great attraction.
It's completely filmed. He was celebrating his birthday party and his 68th. And he went down and there's footage of this man just being chomped on by the crocodile.
Well, that's an honest mistake. Who hasn't jumped into a pool at an amusement park thinking everything was made of plastic?
Oh, my goodness.
Well,
all right. Well,
you can't top that. That's lifted my spirits. I love a story, anything that involves animals.
He's okay, everyone. He's all right.
No, that's good. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Sheila.
Thank you. Bye.
If you enjoy what we do here on the New Flesh podcast, there are a number of ways you can contribute to the success of the show. Consider supporting us financially by becoming a Patreon member and donating monthly or yearly. Alternatively, you can donate money through the Buy Me a Coffee platform. If you're strapped for cash at the moment, there are other ways to support The New Flesh. You can give us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts. These really do help others find our show and help spread the word. Or you can just simply tell your friends about us. Back to the show.
All right, now, John, you want to talk J.K.
I do. I want to talk about J.K. Rowling. So when I moved to Sydney, I went to a bit of a gathering at someone's house on a Sunday or something. And I was sitting at a table and there was like a couple of bohemian types there, and J.K. Rowling came up, and the discussion turned to her books, and someone just said, "Oh yeah, I have a friend who saw those books on someone's shelf and wanted to put like an anti-trans sticker or something on them," and I just let that slide. I was like, "Okay," and then the person whose gathering it was next to me, and they didn't sort of offer any counterpoint or temper it or what this person said. They just sort of let it fly. And then they said, yeah, who would have, and they sort of joined in a bit. And then that just really shocked me. And ever since then, I've been thinking about JK because a lot's happened and we'll go through it all in a second. But I just thought that I was just so shocked that JK Rowling has become such a pariah. So much so that people who have her books are,
they're burning them.
Well, they're burning them. They're doing whatever, and then we've got all this, and that there was no counterpoint. And I probably should have. I wish I'd done all the research I'd done for this back then, because I could have. I should have just said, "Have you guys actually read what she said? Do you guys know what her claims are?" That's probably where I should have started. So let me begin by saying I don't like Harry Potter. Okay.
Neither do I.
I don't like Harry Potter.
Well, I think Harry Potter just missed us, though. You don't think it did? We weren't kids when Harry Potter came out.
We weren't kids. No, we weren't kids. But if you think that people who've jumped on Harry Potter are all kids,
well, that is true. Yeah,
you've got another thing coming. But I think you can go back to our first episode and us talking about that.
I think I mentioned seeing quite a large person wearing a Harry Potter t-shirt walking down the street. Yeah,
the classics. So anyway, I think it's silly, limited, and disappointing, but it is expansive, and I really respect the craft. Okay, but not the content. And J.K. Rowling is a fine writer, absolutely. But they say only Nixon could go to China. So that's why I'm here to tell you about JK. I don't like her work necessarily, but I really respect her craft. So the newest news is HBO Max is doing a reunion special that will not feature JK Rowling. She will appear only in archival footage, which is something we usually do when the person is dead. But it kind of gives you an indicator of what's going on. She's dead to these people, essentially. So all of the actors that she gave jobs to and the director, Chris Columbus, will appear in this celebration of J.K. Rowling's world. And more recently, trans activists took photos in front of her house and exposed her address in a doxing attempt that she has talked about recently. But I thought we'd just go back. Let's cover the whole thing. So I want to start with her initial tweets, some reactions to that, and then I'll throw to you and you can tell me about her essay. So it all started with some tweets that she wrote a while back. So here's the first one. It was in response to an article that talked about people who menstruate, and she had said here, quote, "People who menstruate, I'm sure there used to be a word for those people. Someone help me out. Wumban, wimpund, wumud, opinion, creating a more equal post-COVID world for people who menstruate." So that was the article there. The idea that women like me, who've been empathetic to trans people for decades, feeling kinship because they're vulnerable in the same way as women, i.e. to male violence, hate trans people because they think sex is real and has lived consequences, is a nonsense. If sex isn't real, there's no same-sex attraction. If sex isn't real, the lived reality of women globally is erased. I know and love trans people, but erasing the concept of sex removes the ability of many to meaningfully discuss their lives. It isn't hate to speak the truth. I respect every trans person's right to live in a way that feels authentic and comfortable to them. I'd march with you if you were discriminated against on the basis of being trans. At the same time, my life has been shaped by being female. I do not believe it's hateful to say so. So here we have just some comments from the actors that she made millionaires. So the first actor that's a millionaire because of her said, this is Daniel Radcliffe, transgender women are women. Any statement to the contrary erases the identity and dignity of transgender people and goes against all advice given by professional healthcare associations who have far more expertise on this subject matter than Joe or I. So Joe is J.K. there. So this has actually appeared on the Trevor Project website, and is another quote from Daniel Radcliffe. He does a bit of work for them, I think. According to the Trevor Project, 78% of transgender and non-binary youth reported being the subject of discrimination due to their gender identity. It's clear that we need to do more to support transgender and non-binary people, not invalidate their identities and not cause further harm. I'm still learning how to be a better ally. So if you want to join me in learning more about transgender and non-binary identities, check out the Trevor Project's Guide to Being an Ally to Transgender and Non-Binary Youth. So
he's such a punk bitch. He should shut the fuck up. You know,
look, I'm trying to keep it, professional here, okay. And you've tipped our hand because obviously I think he's a punk bitch too. All right, no, I knew that'd get you steamed.
Yeah. What about Emma Watson or that other Ranger guy? What have they said?
All right. Watson says trans people are who they say they are and deserve to live their lives without being constantly questioned or told they aren't who they say they are. Eloquent. So that's what she tweeted, and she's tweeted a whole bunch of stuff from organizations she's involved with. Grint, he has said he's sort of a bit like his character in the movies. He's sort of third to the party, and he said, "Yeah, trans women are women, trans men are men. We should all be entitled to live with love and without judgment. I firmly stand with the trans community and echo the sentiments expressed by many of my peers." So that sounds like it's dripping with fear.
Is that Ron Weasley, is it?
That is Weasley.
Right.
So that's all the millionaires. But I got some other quotes from, now get this. So what's interesting as well is that some media, when this was reported in the press, the media have labeled her comments and tweets, so like transphobic. So for example, USA Today said, Rupert Grint on why he called out J.K. Rowling's transphobic comments. Now, I want you to know that transphobic is not in quotes or scare quotes or italicized. It just says plainly transphobic comments.
Right.
Okay. So, I mean, I don't know what the defamation laws are, but, you've heard her comments. We'll come to that in a sec. But BuzzFeed has got a follow-up. BuzzFeed says, Rupert Grint revealed why he decided to publicly condemn J.K. Rowling's anti-trans comments, despite having huge respect for her. So that's some more there. Daniel Radcliffe, this is from the New York Times. Daniel Radcliffe criticizes J.K. Rowling's anti-transgender tweets. Again, no italics, no quotes. And this is from Variety. Emma Watson, Daniel Radcliffe, Sarah Paulson, and more condemn J.K. Rowling's anti-trans tweets. So these outlets have made the editorial decision to label J.K. Rowling's tweets as either anti-trans or transphobic, whatever that means, to be honest. I'm not sure I don't even understand what transphobic means. Do you mean that she doesn't like trans people? I don't know what that means. She's certainly not afraid of them. So I don't know what it means. There's no attempt at objectivity or offering another point of view. So I'll just give you maybe another couple here. These are from some blue checks on Twitter. This is after some of her comments. This is from Eliza Skinner. Blue check. I donated to the @Trans Law Center and some other place because when someone tells you what they like to be called, whether it's Rebecca, Becky, Sam, Samuel, Samantha, she, he, they, woman, or something truly whack like JK, just be polite and do it. Don't be a rude transphobe. Javier Munoz, who's another blue check, says, @J.K. Rowling, you're transphobic, divisive, inhumane, disgusting opinions are 100% the problem. Take your voice, your franchise, your presence, and be gone. Ivanesco, Pride Month, and I stand with my entire community. Variety, this is from GLAAD, the head of GLAAD, Anthony Ramos. He says, studios, networks, and brands affiliated with J.K. Rowling owe it to their transgender employees and consumers to speak out against her inaccurate and hurtful comments. One last one. I know it's getting a bit long. This is from Variety. So for somebody who's who stood so much for equality and tolerance for so many years, to actively punch down on a marginalized group like all Harry Potter fans who feel this way. I'm just kind of devastated, says Melissa Anelli, founder of CEO of Mischief Management, a fan events company that runs the popular Harry Potter fan conventions, LeakyCon. Supporting a creator with this view is difficult, she said. So that you've got the whole story there. You heard the tweets as they appeared. You've heard the responses from the actors, and you've seen the media response there, labeling them.
Well, just to add to those tweets quickly, and I'll post a link to this in our show notes, that someone's compiled the J.K. Rowling tweets. It looks like a bit of a collage at the top of the page, and then just all these responses from people on Twitter.
Now, I'll just let people know, if you don't want to hear just a horrendous hate, just you can smash the 30-second button now. But if not, go for it.
Well, I'm not going to read them out, but
I read them and they were fucking appalling.
They are appalling. But there are themes here, like telling her to shut the fuck up is in there.
They're all calling her a cunt.
They all call her a cunt. They call her an old hag. They talk about her vagina being stinky. They talk about
with her vagina, by the way.
Yeah, they are, and they're obsessed with the fact that she's 55 and therefore must have gone through menopause and is no longer a woman. And they call her a bitch, a turf. Turf isn't even used that much. And they tell her she can suck my lady dick. There's a lot of that, and suck my fat juicy cock.
You can't just say that, can you?
It's too much, Well,
it's unhinged.
Too much, and it's unhinged. Yeah,
it's crazy and misogynistic,
but it's amazing to see it all laid out like that. Like, I'm not on Twitter really. I mean, I have an account, but I'm not on it. And to see it all laid out like this in such a big block, and I'm sure there's not everything is here that has ever been said about her on Twitter, but it just gives you this just horrendous view of what people are saying about her, but what Twitter is like in general, I think.
Yeah, no, it's an appalling place, and I don't understand, with the level of vitriol and hatred and disgusting language. I don't understand how you could leave that out of your response. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I was one of those actors, I'd just be like, look, there's a couple of things. I'd be like, yeah, I don't agree with J.K., but I have to just mention, what some of my allies have said, and that's truly disgusting and appalling. And that no one gets out clean here, but no one's mentioned it, and it's the erasure of all of that I find really troubling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, after this whole Twitter storm blew up, J.K. did write a bit of an essay and published it on her website about this. And I've sort of gone through it. I've got some dot points to run through, just sort of like a Cliff Notes version. And I do have a few paragraphs that I think are really interesting that I'm going to read as well. But so she published this thing on the 10th of June, 2020. So it all kind of started with these tweets. Like, she initially tweeted her support for someone called Maya Forstater, who was a tax specialist who lost her job for what were deemed transphobic tweets. And that person took her case to an employment tribunal, asking the judge to rule on whether a philosophical belief that sex is determined by biology is protected in law. And Judge Taylor ruled that it wasn't. So this got J.K. to start, I guess, following the trans issue a bit more closely. She'd also been researching trans stuff for a book that she was writing at the time as well. She accidentally liked a tweet that was skeptical of trans claims around biological sex, and that's when the mob really started going for her, and I think that's when she prompted her to write some more of these tweets. And she mentions in her essay that she received an avalanche of emails that came her way with words of support. And then she outlines 5 reasons for being worried about the new trans activism. and her reason for speaking up. So she says that she has a charitable trust that focuses on women and children, female prisoners, survivors of domestic and sexual abuse, and she also funds research into multiple sclerosis, which I believe is a disease that actually affects men and women quite differently based on your gender or based on your sex. She says here, I've got a little quote. It's been clear to me for a while that the new trans activism is having, or is likely to have, if all its demands are met, a significant impact on many of the causes I support, because it's pushing to erode the legal definition of sex and replace it with gender. She also says that she's an ex-teacher and the founder of a children's charity, and she's concerned about education and safeguarding. Also, she says that as an author, she's interested in freedom of speech, and has also defended Trump's freedom of speech, even though she doesn't agree with his politics. She's also concerned about the explosion in numbers of young women transitioning and detransitioning, and the effect that this has had on their bodies and on their fertility as well. And here's a quote from her essay. Most people probably aren't aware, I certainly wasn't until I started researching this issue properly, that 10 years ago, the majority of people wanting to transition to the opposite sex were male. That ratio has now reversed. The UK has experienced a 4,400% increase in girls being referred for transitioning treatment. Autistic girls are hugely overrepresented in their numbers. She goes on to quote a researcher called Lisa Littman. Parents online were describing a very unusual pattern of transgender identification, where multiple friends and even entire friendship groups became transgender identified at the same time. I would have been remiss had I not considered social contagion and peer influences as potential factors. Littman mentioned Tumblr, Reddit, Instagram, and YouTube as contributing factors to rapid onset gender dysphoria, where she believes that in the realm of transgender identification, youth have created particularly insular echo chambers. So J.K. then turns to her own story of growing up with OCD and struggling with womanhood as a teen, which is a common thing for a lot of women and girls. And she was wondering whether she would have been attracted to transitioning if she was an adolescent growing up today. And she fully acknowledges that transition will be a solution for some gender dysphoric people. And she talks about safeguards and medical evaluation, something that used to exist for people exploring transition, but is all but gone. She states that a man in the UK who intends to have no surgery and take no hormones may now secure himself a gender recognition certificate and be a woman in the eyes of the law. She talks at length about a new kind of veiled misogyny that has taken over contemporary society. And I'm going to finish by reading 2 paragraphs here from the essay that I think really hit home that idea about this sort of new misogynistic era we're living in. So she says, we're living through the most misogynistic period I've ever experienced. Back in the 1980s, I imagined that my future daughters, should I have any, would have it far better than I ever did. But between the backlash against feminism and a porn-saturated online culture, I believe things have got significantly worse for girls. Never have I seen women denigrated and dehumanized to the extent they are now. From the leader of the free world's long history of sexual assault accusations and his proud boast of grabbing them by the pussy, to the incel, that's the involuntary celibate movement that rages against women who won't give them sex, to the trans activists who declare that TERFs need punching and re-educating, men across the political spectrum seem to agree that women are asking for trouble. Everywhere, women are being told to shut up and sit down or else. I've read all the arguments about femaleness not residing in the sexed body and the assertions that biological women don't have common experiences, and I find them too deeply misogynistic and regressive. It's also clear that one of the objectives of denying the importance of sex is to erode what some seem to see as the cruelly segregationist idea of women having their own biological realities, or just as threatening, unifying realities that make them a cohesive political class. The hundreds of emails I've received in the last few days prove this erosion concerns many others just as much. It isn't enough for women to be trans allies. Women must accept and admit that there is no material difference between trans women and themselves. So she finishes by opening up about her own domestic abuse at the hands of her first husband, and states her concern that men can now be so easily recognised legally as women, and the potential disaster of giving men complete access to female-only spaces. So overall, I think her main point is that she's concerned for young women. So that's basically her essay in a nutshell, which you can read in full from her website. It's a very measured argument, and she's just bringing up pretty valid points that other gender-critical feminists are bringing up, and something that we should be able to talk about.
But now we've heard everything. Do you think that the responses from the actors and the media and whatnot match with what J.K. Rowling has actually said?
No, not at all. And I think it goes back to that thing where people nowadays, they don't have the time or the self-discipline to sit down and read something as long as this.
Because it seems to me that no one has actually engaged with her arguments. Like even the tweets, like because the essay came later, which I think it's beautifully written. The tweets, if you read the tweets, and if you just started there and actually pulled them apart rather than take it as the vibe and just go, the vibe, I don't like the vibe. If you actually read it, they're quite carefully written as well. You can tell she's a writer, that she proofreads everything, even her tweets.
For sure, yeah.
And so none of these people have engaged in an honest way, intellectually honest way. The actors come across as passionate and desperate to do the right thing. However, none of them come across as particularly deep thinkers. And I think that the paragon in this sense is Daniel Radcliffe's counter essay, which appears on that Trevor Project website. And I love that whenever people talk about mention it or quote it, they say a lengthy essay, and you go and it's like 2 paragraphs, and you go, Jesus Christ.
Is that Daniel Radcliffe's essay?
It's like, it's a lengthy essay, and you go, fucking hell, is it? Like, it's just like, maybe your brain's broken and you can't read past 2 paragraphs. Anyway, his essay, which I read some paragraphs from earlier, shows him, frankly, to not be anywhere near JK's level intellectually, which isn't to say he's a dum-dum.
No, well, she's got a lot more experience as well, life experience.
But this is no one's taking this into account. I mean, we don't need to do the argument from authority just because she's 55 or whatever. But at the same time, she's a writer. He's an actor. I don't need to tell you those are very different professions. He's got a bit more time on his hands, to be honest with you, than she does. She's a writer in her 50s. She's been reading and researching and thinking for decades. For 2 decades before he'd even probably thought about it. So, there's no thought to the idea that maybe she's done a bit more research than him. And he might be a genius. He's not, by the way. But I'm just saying that, like, when you read this stuff, it's just so fascinating. It's like his work with the Trevor Foundation and Watson's philanthropic work. I mean, which is all fine, by the way. But does their connection completely to these, in things? Should that erase all of J.K. Rowling's claims? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, isn't this a case of ideology or just like wearing a Guernsey?
Yeah. And
that getting in the way of what are very complex issues. And I think she's done her best to outline in her essay.
And which also quotes other people working in the field and statistics as well. I mean, you can't look at that statistic, the people transitioning to the opposite sex that used to be predominantly males to females is now female to male. Like, you can't look at that stat and go, what the fuck is happening here, or that there's been a 4,400% increase in girls being referred. I mean, you need those sorts of statistics alone need to open up a conversation, an honest conversation.
No, Radcliffe is saying any statement to the contrary erases the identity and dignity of transgender people and goes against all advice, not some advice, not most advice, not predominantly all of it.
Well, that's
all
not
advice
true.
Given by professional healthcare associations. So, professional healthcare association.
Well, there have been doctors and psychiatrists and psychologists who have left those sorts of organisations in protest because they do not agree with what's happening.
The Tavistock Clinic is one of them. I'm told.
Yes.
But so he's allowed to get away with this statement. I thought democracy died in darkness. Okay, so he's allowed to get away with what the American press would call a lie here. This is an outright lie. Daniel Radcliffe is a liar. You know what I mean? Like, that is a goddamn lie.
Yeah.
If you haven't done the reading, then you can just say, I haven't done the reading. But you cannot get up and say unequivocally, and he's taking that full Stonewall attitude of no debate. So he's saying any statement to the contrary.
Yeah.
Any statement to the contrary. So this is terrible advice. This guy and those other actors, to a certain degree, should be ashamed of themselves. This guy, and I'll tell you why. This guy should be ashamed of himself. He and the other millionaires that J.K. made have hung her out to dry, and at no point were they charitable to anything she had to say.
No.
And they did it because they did it, and from what I gather, to be well-meaning as it may be, they did it for very trendy reasons. Because they can't stand the idea of losing some followers and getting up. And whereas J.K. is showing a bit of integrity, and that is costly, as we know. So what really struck me, I don't know if this hit you right in the guts, but this is that last thing she says. She says, the last thing I want to say is this. I haven't written this essay in the hope that anybody will get out a violin for me, not even a teeny weeny one. She's a good writer. I'm extraordinarily fortunate. I'm a survivor, certainly not a victim. I've only mentioned my past because, like every other human being on this planet, I have a complex backstory which shapes my fears, my interests, and my opinions. I never forget that inner complexity when I'm creating a fictional character, and I certainly never forget it when it comes to trans people. These actors they're not ready for this kind of thinking and this kind of feeling. This is a very mature thinker.
Yeah.
A deep thinker. And she's calling for understanding here of the dazzling complexity of what it means to be human. We're not defined by our tweets. There's nuance, there's shades of grey, and it's possible for someone to write a book series that delights millions of children and adults alike and hold views about biology and sex that, not everyone agrees with, or at least that are contentious issues. Shouldn't our mission be to become curious about other people's interests and ideas, to investigate what they say fully, or is everyone who disagrees with us our enemy, and so they must be destroyed?
Yeah,
it's a real shame. This is a terrible situation. It's taken me a long time to get around to it. Now that I've read a little bit about it, I can't believe we're even talking about it. I feel like there's so much in this that just speaks for itself.
Again, I don't think we should be elevating actors, and particularly young actors, to any sort of voice of authority. They're fucking actors. Get on with your job of acting and leave this sort of discussion to people that are
to the adults.
To the adults, yeah. I mean, it's just so. I don't know why people even listen to actors.
Well, look, yeah. I mean, that's a huge discussion about the actors, but I just feel like in this particular case, there's not any charitable reading of if you had integrity, if any of you had integrity, what you could do, is you could engage with it, and maybe you could say to HBO Max, if JK's not on this program, I'm not going on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wanted to say that too. Where's the integrity of some of these actors that can at least acknowledge the fact that she's created something that has resonated with children and adults around the world, and that made you a fucking success, made you a millionaire and someone who can now do anything they want to with their lives, pretty much. I mean, you don't have to worry about money at all, and you're living your life as an actor, and to not be able to put all this shit aside and say, well, Harry Potter was Harry Potter. Let's get on with talking about that.
And if you had integrity, you could also say, I'm not doing X, Y, Z until the bullying of J.K. Rowling stops on Twitter. Until and she could call he, she, whoever could call out people's bad actions, regardless of what side they're on.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? It's not about demonizing people and saying that you're a terrible person, you're a monster, you're not human. It's about saying, you know, that particular action you did is bad. I'm going to call it out.
Yeah.
You know, like so. I feel like this is a total outrage.
Mm. Well, the other thing that's really disappointing is this is filtering through into the next generation of kids, because there's a news article, a recent one that's come out, that where a school removes the names of Winston Churchill and J.K. Rowling to be more diverse, in quotation marks. And basically the article says that the children in this primary school, you know, they wanted to rename the two classrooms or the two halls or buildings or whatever that are called Winston Churchill and J.K.
What they renamed them to? Peppa Pig.
No, they renamed them to some both of them are people of color. I can't remember.
The kids they didn't know. The kids didn't know who those people were.
The kids didn't know who they were. And the school parades this as, aren't the kids great and wise, and
Right.
it was their idea. They wanted to do it. I mean, I call total bullshit on this. What primary school kid wants to get rid of J.K. Rowling from their school building's name and replace it with some, black rights activists that they'd never heard of before? It's fucking total bullshit.
J.K. Rowling's achievement is incredible, and the fact that she achieved all of this later in life, and and the writing circumstances of Harry Potter, I think it was pretty hectic as well, her life. So I think it's a staggering achievement, and she's made a lot of people happy. You can make the entire world happy. I have friends who've read and listened to these books in other languages. You know what I mean? To learn English and stuff. So her reach is far and wide, and I just feel like, maybe all these people who worked with her owed her is just, you don't have to go and throw yourself in front of a bullet, but maybe you owe her the respect to read, watch, and to listen to what she actually has to say, and to judge each part of it on its merits. You can't just go, oh, she's a hate monger. You got to go, okay, let's get into it. Let's get into the weeds and say, what do we agree on? Because you actually might find out, what if you agreed with 99.98% of everything that J.K. Rowling says, and there's just that 0.2% or whatever where you disagree? But the thing is, if this is such bullshit though, because if we did, imagine if this was, if you had a mind reader, or it was Liar Liar, where everyone had to say what they're really thinking. Do you think that Radcliffe and Watson and Grint all have 100% of every single thing that they think and believe is fashionable and trendy? Like, really think, not just what they're performatively, saying.
Yeah.
But like, if you ask them about what they really think about everything, do you think that like everything would pass the purity test, or would there be a couple of things where they'd go, oh, geez, that's not on?
Of course, I mean, that's just how the human mind works. We have that. Our mind is a private space, and sometimes things pop in there.
Tell me more.
Yeah. But people have filters. And I agree. I mean, no one is 100% right all the time. No one is 100% pure as well. And yeah, I just think they're just crazy, and I think it's they've obviously got this attitude where they're on the right side of history, and that everyone who thinks differently is on the wrong side of history, and we have to force them to think our way. We have to yell and scream at them or cancel them, or obviously you can't cancel J.K. Rowling, she's too big, but cancel other people. Or
if we did a referendum about any of the issues that she's brought up, like in the UK or Australia, whatever, if we did a referendum, I mean, what do you think? Do you think that most of the country would probably agree with J.K. Rowling?
Yes, in terms of women-only spaces and the term biological sex and the language stuff where the word woman's being erased and that sort of thing, I think 100% the majority of people would be on board with that.
Yeah, and that's fascinating to me that we've got these sort of parallel worlds. I mean, I suppose it's always it's been that way for a while, but so the reality is now there's things we know to be true, and there's things that you like, in a normal household or whatever that you think and believe, and or that people think and believe, whether you agree with it or not. And then there's this alternate reality where the New York Times, the LA Times, Variety, all of the institutions and everything, and Emma Watson and whatever the fuck are all just hectoring and parroting and screaming and just prostrating and screaming at the sky like that woman after the Rittenhouse verdict, and people just sort of quietly go about their business and sort of like, but when they go into the voting booth, they just like quietly tick. Quietly tick no thanks.
Yeah.
I just think that's so fascinating that you've got to create this monastery of the mind, as Victor Davis Hanson says, where you just like J.K. Rowling, neither her tweets nor her essay are extremist in any way. I don't think. I think they're reasonable. You might not like it, you might not agree. You can probably take her up on those issues in the right forum, but the people who come across as extremists and unhinged are these actors and the institutions the organizations they represent who have extremist opinions. Like if your kid came home and was like, this guy said this thing, I hate him, I don't care what he says, I'm never going to listen to anything, you'd go, okay, you sound extreme. You need to calm down. And you need to see the shades of grey. So Stonewall and all that who say no debate, that is possibly the most childish thing I've ever heard.
Yes, yeah. Especially for an organisation like that, they should be, if their views are good and right, then they should be able to stack up against scrutiny and debate.
That's it. That's the real fucking juice. That's what I'm getting at. You said it. So why do you need to make such a big deal? If your argument is sound and your ideas hold the ring of truth, or have the ring of truth, then why do you need to? You don't need to oversell it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so because all of this, has really just completely pushed me into JK's court. So much so that next time I'm at someone's house and they bring it up, I'm going to have to, I think, go to the mattresses. For JK, because the actors who she catapulted into stardom won't do it, so someone's got to do it, and I think it's going to be me.
Well, get your Slytherin outfit on, and
I will. I will.
It's funny, some of these tweets, a lot of these tweets, people are like, I used to love Harry Potter and now I'm throwing out all my memorabilia.
You shouldn't have bought it in the first place, you fat loser.
You were duped by Universal Pictures,
You were.
You gave them all your money for those limited edition fucking figurines or whatever.
The vinyl pop bobblehead bullshit.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, that was a great show. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, and we got a few new listeners too. So if this is the first show you've ever heard, this is a good taste of what you're going to get on Thursday, I think, lively, dangerous, not as much chubbies. That's mainly side boob on a Wednesday. Sorry.
Yes, we do have a podcast within a podcast, movie review podcast, which airs on every Wednesday.
Actually, this show airs on a Friday. I forgot to say that.
It does.
All right. Well, next week we have Basic Instinct on Side Boob Cinema on Wednesday, and we won't advertise it, but we're doing our best to get a very special guest for next Friday's show.
Yes, all things going well. Yeah, we'll have an interview for you for Friday.
Excellent. Well, we said what we said.
Yes, we did. Long live the new flesh.
Long live the new flesh. Standard Operating Procedure. You've heard of St. Nick, it's time for St. Dick.